In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the rear brakes, pads, and rotors on this Nissan Frontier. These will be located behind your rear wheels. Let's get started. With the vehicle safely raised and supported, use a 21mm socket, remove all 6 lug nuts, and then pull the wheel off. The vehicle may have different wheels based on the trim. If you have these center caps, keep in mind they come off once the lug nuts are off of here, so just make sure you catch it. And now remove the wheel. Next, what I'd like to do is remove the bleeder screw cap. Sometimes you can just grab it, twist it, and pull it off. Other times you might need a small screwdriver to help you pry it off. Now use a 10mm socket and break this free. As I do this, I'm going to attach this hose leading to a collection receptacle so I can collect the fluid and not have it go all over the place. Of course, if you don't have this, use a drain pan and just make sure that when you compress this piston, it doesn't shoot straight out. So just go slow. For me, that'll be my next step, is using a pry bar right through here, pulling on the caliper and compressing that piston back in. You could also do this later after you have the caliper off, but I find this to be easier since I can get to it. This should go smoothly, and it should not take a lot of force. If this does take a lot of force, what it means is either the piston is seized or one of the slider pins are stuck. In my case, everything went back perfectly smooth. I'm going to give this another 5 to 10 seconds so that any air that may have entered the system can fill up the caliper here at the top. Once I see some fluid come out through my clear tubing, I can close this off. Snug it, and then if you use one of these hoses, remove it. Remove your wrench, wipe off any brake fluid that may still be on there, or rinse it with brake parts cleaner if needed. Cap it off, and let's dismount the caliper. Use a 14mm socket or wrench, remove the 2 bolts holding the caliper onto its bracket. Once you break them free, typically these come off easily by hand, so remove them both. And then when we set the caliper aside, you want to make sure it's not hanging on the brake hose. So what I'll do is I'll flip it up and over and put it on top of the leaf spring. Now we can take off our pads. You may need a pry bar for this, but sometimes they're not super stuck, so you can just take them right off. Next, there are 2 19mm bolts that we need to remove to get the bracket off of the rear axle. I don't have space for a power tool in here, so I'm just going to break these free by hand. We'll remove them the rest of the way and then pull the bracket off. When these bolts come off, keep in mind they have a washer that you have to save and of course reuse when you put it back together. And set this aside. Now from the front side, remove the rotor. If it doesn't come off easily, it's either stuck to the axle, the hub side of it of course, or the parking brake shoes are holding it up. In my case, it comes right off. Clean up the mounting surface on the hub. What you can do to do this is use a wire brush or a sanding disc or even a wire wheel on a drill. In my case, this is in pretty good shape. There isn't much rust, so I just want to clean all of this debris up and make sure that I coat it with some anti-seize once I'm done. I have a collection bucket to catch all of my fluid because I will be spraying it with brake parts cleaner as I clean this off. It's important for this surface to be clean, flat, free of debris so that the new rotor can mount flush. To prevent corrosion from building up in the future, I'm going to coat it with some anti-seize. Be careful if you use the spray type not to get any on the parking brake shoes. Keep the layer nice and thin. If you put too much, it'll squeeze out, get on the surface of your parking brake shoes where it touches the rotor, and that would not be good because it's going to make them not hold. I'm going to put this rotor on backwards temporarily just so I can hold it on. I have a collection bucket underneath, and I'm going to spray this braking surface with brake parts cleaner to get all the oils and grease off. Don't forget about the parking brake shoe area. Once you have that cleaned off, remove it, flip it around, and install it the right way. Clean the outside braking surface as well. This opening here is supposed to be plugged up with a rubber plug that you need to remove from the old rotor. Unfortunately, my old rotor did not have this, so whoever did the brakes last didn't transfer this over. This allows you to adjust the parking brake shoes with the rotor on, but it needs to be plugged up while it's not being used so water and debris don't get in there. If you have your plug, put it in. With our caliper bracket on the workbench, it's time to clean it. So the first thing I want to do is take off the anti-rattle clips from both sides. We'll flip it upright like this and clean this area with a wire brush or even a file if it's severe enough. Mine looks like it's not that bad, so a wire brush should do the trick. You want to remove rust and debris from here. If it's swollen, you want to file it down flat. Otherwise, the pads won't fit on right. That looks pretty good. We'll flip it over, do the same thing over here. Right where you cleaned, apply a little bit of brake grease or silicone paste. Don't put too much, because if you do, it'll get squished out onto the rotor right in the center here when you put the anti-rattle clip on. And speaking of, with that thin layer of brake grease put on there, apply the anti-rattle clip. We'll do the same to the other side, just like that. Now what you want to do is put the caliper bracket down back on the table and remove each slider pin one at a time. One is a solid pin, the other one you'll see has a rubber bushing on it. Wipe the old grease off, make sure it's in good shape. These are actually in great shape, so I'm not worried about it. In here, if you had a lot of old grease or if it was stuck, you'd want to take this off and clean inside with a bore brush. I actually have fresh grease in here, so I'm going to put this right back on. I'll take a little bit of my own grease and add that into the boot, work it in. This is going to provide a reserve of grease as the brakes operate. And of course, put the rest that's on the brush on the pin. Now you can't put too much because it's just going to get wiped off. It is important though that you get it right up here on this ridge. That's where the boot seals up. Once you've done that, you can stick this right in, push it and squeeze the boot to release any excess air. And at this point, what you can also do is pull the boot off of the caliper side and make sure that the grease has worked its way right here. That's going to help it seal. Flip this over, do the same to the other side. However, as I mentioned, this one has a bushing on it, so you want to make sure you keep these on their corresponding sides. If there's air stuck in here and you can't squeeze the boot, use a little screwdriver to help you pry it away as you push the pin in. And now we can mount this back on the truck. Line up the caliper bracket with the mounting bolt holes, and then of course have your mounting bolts ready. Start one of them in by hand. Once that thread's in, you can stop and install the other one to keep things lined up. Once they're both in, we'll bottom them out and we'll torque them. Torque both of these bolts to 76 foot-pounds. It's time to install the pads. The one that goes on the inside has a wear indicator. If you're working on the driver's side, you'll see that it only fits on the bottom. If you're working on the passenger side, the pad will be the other way around, so it'll fit on the top. Regardless, the one on the inside has the wear indicator. Slide this in at an angle. It should push in easily. The one on the outside does not have a wear indicator. There we go. If these pads don't go in easily and they don't move around freely, that means you did not clean up the bracket enough and they're being squished. If that happens, the brakes can drag and therefore create issues. Once these are on, take your caliper, flip it over and install it over the pads and the bracket. Start in one of the bolts and put in the second one. With both installed, we'll get them bottomed out. Torque these two bolts to 24 foot-pounds. In my case, the slider pin is spinning as I try to torque this. If you have a thin wall 17mm wrench, you can use that. I don't, so I'm just going to carefully use some pliers. Make sure you don't pinch the boot, but you can hold the slider pin with that. All right, those are both tight. Install the wheel. If your vehicle had these center caps, install them now. And then thread on all 6 lug nuts. We're going to bottom these out in a cross pattern, and then also in a cross pattern, torque them to 98 foot-pounds. 98 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Here we go. Double check them all. Job is done. Take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.